koja sustavno pruža podršku impact poduzetnicima. Dakle, opet spominjemo tu riječ impact koja još uvijek nema nekakav ustaljen prijevod u hrvatskom jeziku, pogotovo kada govorimo o nekakvim praksama koje su vezane uz društvenu ekonomiju ili društveno poduzetništvo. Pa ćemo probati i danas zapravo otvoriti nekako i tu temu razumijevanja tih različitih pojmova koje ćemo spominjati. Da, krenemo onda zapravo od početka pozdravljanjem. Dakle, dobro jutro svima, na slovenskom pozdravljeni, također dobro jutro. I na engleskom, dakle svi ćemo se na engleski. Good morning to everybody. So today this lecture will be held in English. It will be composed of a short introduction by me. Then we will follow with a lecture from my colleague Primož, and we will follow with a discussion. I suppose you're all used to Zoom, so I would propose to use the chat to open the questions, but I think we are like 20, 25, so I think we will also use open mic methodology in the discussion that will follow, as I said, the lecture. So today with us, we have a Primož Šporar. I don't know when we met for the first time. I think it was a couple of years ago. I suppose it was not in Slovenia nor in Croatia, somewhere in Europe. And Primož, as you saw in the introduction, basically is a really great guy who is in the social economy sector for a long time. I think in the introduction on the LinkedIn, it says he's here with us for more than 20 years. I saw in the introduction of the panel that we also communicated that Primož is the CEO of different, I would say, development organizations, so Foundation for Social Investment, Sklad 05, but he's also a chief development officer in a couple of startups, a couple of impact enterprises that are developing quite innovative solutions for some of the sectors that will be discussed today. And I see that we also have my colleague Lidija Pavić-Rogosić from Održiva here with us today. She's basically the colleague of Primož Šporar in the European Economic and Social Committee. I know that we are also connected with Primož through the Euclid network, where he holds the position of a member of the board of directors. So Primož is a guy who is everywhere and always on the places where something new is going on. So I would say that his lecture today would be quite interesting for all of us, and as well as for me, as Igor introduced me. I'm the guy who is following a lot what is going on in the broader sense of the social economy, but more and more focusing on the impact business sector. And today we will use a couple of words that I would say are quite new or not familiar to all of us. So we will definitely hear impact and impacting as a basically action of reducing and sustaining the impact. So we will somehow also mention the process of impact management, which is connected always with the impact measurement. And I think today we will not talk about the monetization of the social impact, but we will talk about how basically to impact the money we are using for our actions. Primož will talk a lot about impact modeling. So we will discuss impact strategies, impact business model. He will introduce us to some of the startups, as I said, that are using impact business modeling in the production of the innovative products. And we will talk about the impactization, which is quite new word. I just Googled it before the panel, and it seems that the Primož and his organizations are the most prominent users of this word in the world. Something that I'm keen to find out is this a new methodology or a new movement also a part of the impact revolution, which is quite broader concept introduced by Cyril Cohen a couple of years ago. I don't know if you have had the chance to read his two books. One is on impact, the guide to impact revolution, and the last one is impact reshaping capitalism to drive real change. It is available also, I have it in the hard copy, but it's available also as a PDF to download. So try to, if you are interested in the impactization as a global process, and in impact strategizing as a methodology to somehow align the minds of the all relevant stakeholders in the social economy sector, like investors, philanthropists, entrepreneurs, social organizations, like big businesses. I think this is something that Primož Šporar will also talk about today, as well as governments and then the general public. I would say that impact revolution is some broad topic that is covering also today's lecture. So the main topics that Primož will cover in the first part of the panel in the lecture is I think we will somehow underline what and have a common understanding of what social economy and sustainable economy are. What exactly is impactization? Primož will, as I said previously, introduce us to product impactization and impactization of different industries. He will use his own examples in order to somehow introduce us to those new methodologies and new movements. And I think he will finish with the explanation of impact model impactization and how basically that fits in the social innovation and innovation, global innovation movements that are going on. So Primož, at the beginning, thank you very much for your time and yeah, always your energy that you put in the discussions like this one. At the beginning, it would be great if you can still introduce a little bit yourself. You have a great track record of the different activities with the different stakeholders, and after that, I will give you a floor to do a short lecture. I think we agreed on 30 minutes lecture, so I would propose that we just write down the question on your notebooks or in the chat, and after the lecture, we will do the discussion around. I don't want to interrupt Primož in this lecture because I think it is really good structured and it covers new terms, so something that maybe would be much clearer at the end of the lecture. So Primož, please give us a short introduction, share your screen, and please start with a lecture presentation.
Thank you to Theo and Igor for this nice introduction. I hope you can hear me. I'm extremely glad to be with you today here from Kran, from Slovenia. Srdačan pozdrav svima. Already at the beginning, apology because my Croatian is even worse than the English. So that's why I asked the organizer to do it in English. Also, the majority of the materials are in English, so sometimes it's kind of hard to think if the papers are not following the same language. So apology at the beginning for that. But I'm extremely glad to be online. The second apology goes for the presentation, which you see today. Well, due to the, I would say, lack of time and full agenda that probably all of us share, I did a presentation, a bit of a copy and paste of different things, but I already promised the organizers to equip you also later on with a more detailed presentation that can serve you on the topic that we will talk today. I'll share the screen with you. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. Just let me know if this works for you. This should be the first slide. Hopefully you can see it. I'll come back to what I'll talk about. Just give me a second. Yeah. As Theo said, the introduction, this is a very short one in the sense of my name is Primož Šporar, coming from Kran. I'm 49 years old. By profession, I'm a lawyer. have one wife and 5 kids. I'm a CEO of a group called Not for Profit that I'll talk a bit later on. As said, I was a long time for a member of the European Economic and Social Committee, so special hi also to Cvjetana. I'm no longer anymore. Slovenia has a new representative. I was there for 15 years, so I think it's time to innovate on that. I think that's more than enough. Indeed, I'm involved in many organizations in different roles, and my professional background in the last 15 years was focused on the impactization, social economy, social innovation, and investment. And this at the bottom is about my private life. I really love to compensate all this social with alpinism and in mountain running to clear my head and to think more clearly about the world. So basically, I'm coming from what I would call private micro not-for-profit business group, which is based here in Slovenia, in Kranj. It consists of 4 different organizations. We have a foundation, we have a limited company, we have an association of private institutes and a social enterprise, and we have several spin-offs that you will also see later on in the presentation. Basically, what we do is we try to develop, as Theo said, we try to develop different projects, programs, activities that result in a public benefit and impact. In last years, I think here is the number. Yeah, we manage 367 social investments and impact investments. Their value in the money is a bit above 5 million euros, but we only get a 2.59. So we are somewhere at the 52% of gathering the money. But as you know, also other impacts are within this program. So it's not only about the money. Basically, we are very much focused on Slovenia, but also regionally and in the European environment, trying to be a part of the developments. What I'll talk today about is, you already said that probably the titles were a bit intriguing in a way, using some of the words which are not necessarily clear, and there is a terminology mess and so on. My honest intention today was not to go too much into the terminology and start debate about that, because obviously there are many different words that we use in different countries, many different approaches. What I'll share with you is our view and our approach. My intention is, which is one of the development goals that we do, is actually to share concrete tools, instruments, and mechanisms so that people could do something related to the impact, to the social economy sector, to do something good. Why am I talking today about this? Obviously, I would say there are 3-4 reasons for that. One is that for sure we are facing complex societal challenges. There's no dilemma on that. The last example of COVID clearly shows that we are not capable to solve these problems with, I would say, conventional methods that exist. So we need to think how to tackle these complex societal challenges. The second one is, it's very popular to talk about impact. So obviously I talk about impact all the time. Everybody talks about impact, not necessarily that we understand each other perfectly, but everybody talks in the last 5-10 years about the impact. And I think one of the reasons that I talk, it's not only because it's popular, but because there is a lack of understanding on the correlation between impact, innovation, competitiveness, and stuff like that. So it is a very complex topic that we can't deal in 45 minutes, but we can open some of the views. And as said, I think there is a desperate need for simple, practical methodologies and tools. I'll show you today. I'm pretty sure that you all have extensive experience in this field within your activities, as mentioned, within the concept of ekonomija, društvena ekonomija, socijalno poduzetništvo, and so on and so forth. I'll show 3 cases of what I call impactization at the 3 different levels. Let me start with the word impactization. Very briefly, I said I won't go into the terminology. This is, in my knowledge, not even a word. So it's not existing English word that would be in vocabulary. But we're using it to describe a process where you want, whether it's a policy or a product or a service or a process or activity, you want to maximize impact of this activity on the society. For us, it's very simple. Whatever you take, whatever you do has an impact. And you can harm the society, you can harm the environment, the social, the economic values, and other things, or you can add to the value and you can build, there are different words for that, the social capital, the society capital, and so on and so forth. So impactization as a process for us is the process where you methodologically build maximum impact that is possible from your activity, whether you do it within the business or as a private person or however. Today, I'll talk about three different things. One, impactization and impact modeling of the new business models. This is the first one. The second one, impactization of some of the industries, and I'll show you the example how we do it. And the third one, very simple one, on the products level. And let me start with the first one. The first one is, I already said, we have different levels of societal challenges. Some of them are very complex. Migration, social inclusion, unemployment, and so on. They can't be solved easily. And we kind of imagine them as we imagine in chemistry, for example, or in biology, the molecules of different things. We understand the structure of this complex situation, and we are trying to build what we call impact molecules to solve these societal challenges. It depends really whether these challenges are simple, demanding, complex, whether we have information on that, whether we have evaluation of the costs, and so on. So these are very different dimensions of these complex or less complex challenges. For some of them, it seems that existing business models do not adequately solve them. One of the models that I would shortly like to talk to you about is what you already heard, for example, is the introduction of new models of social impact bonds or social outcome contracting. This is a model where you tackle society challenges, but you do it in a kind of a unique public-private partnership, and you involve the government that identifies the challenges, you involve the social service providers, you involve the impact investors, you involve the target population, you involve the evaluators, you involve the academia, the research sector. So it's kind of a complex formula to tackle complex challenges. There are some, I would say, preconditions to do that. There obviously needs to be a clear society challenge. You need to have a clearly defined target group and so on. I won't go into details there. I would just like to tell you that if you tackle problems like that, for example, migration is such a problem, or the nets, I don't know what kind of word you use in Croatian, the nets are young people dropping out of schools. There are several very complex reasons, and I'll, for example, show you in the next case, what do we do with that. This is what I'm presenting here is based on one of the projects that we run together with the PVC and Institute for Economic Research in Slovenia, based on the order of the European Commission offering help to the Ministry for Technology in Slovenia. So how do we tackle these things? One, and the first methodology that I would like to talk today is already mentioned, impact modeling. We do it, well, you can do it obviously differently, but we scan some of the methodologies abroad, and we do it in 10 steps, what we call impact modeling. For those of you who work on the project basis, for example, not-for-profit organizations, associations, and so on, you are all aware of part of this methodology. Probably some of things could be new. So what we do is, first we define society within the impact modeling, we define the societal benefit. So what are we doing? We define the societal challenge in a way, for example, this is one of the examples. The number of active unemployed nets in Slovenia is persistently high. This is obviously a complex societal challenge. On the other hand, Slovenian tourism industry can't offer skilled and motivated local working force, contributing to services quality. So it seems we have a two-level societal challenge, and we are going to tackle it with social outcome scheme and with this impact modeling system. So you define in the first phase societal challenge. In the second, you define the impact goal. What do we want to do? We want to decrease the number of NEETs by impact employment. We use the word impact employment, which is a kind of a correlation to the quality employments in tourism, because there is a huge debate what kind of employment in tourism is good and not, and long-term and sustainable and so on. And we want to increase experience well-being of these young people and employment competencies. Obviously, this is impact as such. On the terminology, we distinct the impact obviously for the outcomes, because if you kind of adjust outcomes for what would happen anyway, for actions of others and so on, for the consequences, then you get the impact. The first phase is you define the target group. Who do you want to work? In this case, for example, it could be different, but in this case, you work with the NEETs, young people from 24 to 29, and you include 100 people. So this is clearly saying defining. In the phase, then you step into the B, to the phase 4, where you try to outcome generation. So what are the outcomes that you need to create to achieve the impact? And you need skilled and motivated NEETs. You need unemployment and low willingness is decreased, and so on and so forth. And this is based on a methodological approach of what we call problem tree that you already probably are aware. So you research the problem, you do the problem tree, and you see where are the reasons, the causes, the grassroots problems, and from there on, you set the objectives at the general level. The next one, which is extremely important, is the phase 5. You identify and measure the outcome goals. So you try to be concrete. And you say, for example, in this case, it could be different, but in this case, you will have 36 months, 3 years long SOC program that will motivate 90% of the NEETs to finish 6 months program for them and decrease by 20. So we will get 20 employments out of 100. They will be employed for at least 24 months. And we will also increase the experience well-being for 80 participants out of 100. You put that also on the timesheet and so on and so forth. So this is a concretization. What are we going to do? What concrete outcomes are coming out of that? In the next phase, which is very much about related to the complexity of the social outcome schemes and also to the social impact bonds, is obviously you need to talk about financing. And you go through the very detailed process. I wouldn't like to lose too much time on that, but you do the statistics, you do the research, you do the evaluations, you try to find all different data on direct and indirect costs and so on and so forth. And you come to the different figures that are putting the financial framework to the whole program. And you kind of design the financial scheme of the program. You estimate the intervention costs. You estimate the number of participants and so on and so forth. So the mathematics at the end of the day, and I think this is important, shows that if you don't do anything, there is a status quo situation. The societal cost of something are equal to something. And if you do this model and you go with these interventions that you design, you actually make public sector savings. So this is a business model. You're not selling products and services, but you are with innovative solutions trying to reduce the societal challenge and the negative effects, and you try to save the money to the public authority or to the government. In that sense, what you do is you also use the private investors to pre-finance for the pre-financing, and everybody gets paid if there is impact and efficient program and the outcomes reached. For example, in this program, there are different numbers, but basically what we're saying here is the proposed SOC could reduce costs to 8.1 million euros in the next 6 years. That would result in 1.6 million of potential cost savings. And this 1.6 would mean that we generated some, beside the impact that we generated, we also did the financial impact of that. Now, besides, because we are obviously talking about the impact, we can't talk about only about the money. And in the phase C, at the operational modeling level, what you do is you frame this scheme. So what exactly are you going to do? And as in any project planning, you can use the inputs, activities, outputs to reach the outcomes, impact goal, and so on and so forth. And conceptually, you frame this scheme that you're going to do. You visualize it. So what concrete activities are serving to the concrete objectives, to the concrete outputs and activities. And you get visualization of what exactly are you doing. And what is important, well, you also do the textual framing. What is important, you kind of divide these activities into different groups. You list them in a sense that you know where you invest. And you invest, for example, here into the area of education and know-how. You invest into the services and support. You invest into the creation and infrastructure. There are different fields where you can invest with your intervention. And you focus your activities because these are, well, based on the research of this societal challenge, the best solutions to offer and to go with. What you do later on in the next phase 8 is you test whether this scheme is appropriate or not. And it has to have some of the parameters that you go along with her. On the side of the stakeholders, whether you have decision makers that support you, whether you have service providers, whether the target group is reachable, and so on and so forth. And at the level of the challenge, whether there is a need for systematic approach, whether this is solvable, whether you need new collaboration models, whether there is a social innovation needed, for example. And on the right side of this slide, you'll see there are 6, 7, 8 new innovative elements in this scheme, which doesn't exist. So that means that these are existing gaps in the existing support schemes for the needs. So it means that this approach is probably a good one to use, because with the existing tools, we can't solve this complex society challenge. Based on that, you go into the details. These details here are not from our SOC, they are copied from the CITRA, which I think is the best organization in Europe. It's a Finnish organization, a government agency in the sense of dealing with the social impact, social outcome schemes, developing different things. And what you do in these phases from 9 on is you kind of visualize the relationship and dynamics. So how will the customers, how will this net go from one service to another? How these solutions and where will be applicable? How the money transfer will be, who's going to execute different phases and so on. So you go into very much detail how this scheme will look like, so to minimize the risk of not reaching the objectives. So this is a very strategic and detailed planning that takes weeks and months. And based on that, you actually, in a phase, I won't go into all details, obviously, because we don't have time, you define then the process modeling, and you define more formal procedure for that. At this point, for example, we did the project based on the initiative of the European Commission. But later on, for example, the European Commission has a nice instrument of partnership for innovation in one of the directives. We have in Slovenia Public Procurement Act that copied that. So you can go with a formal procedure to build partnership to solve these complex society challenges with this instrument. So this is, for example, one methodological process where we involve many stakeholders. It's quite complex, not easy, but on the other side, if you tackle complex challenges, you can clearly see how much problems we have with these separate individual attempts, not trying to build synergies. In Slovenia at this point, we are between 5, we are at this point selecting one of the 5 different proposed SOCs, and one will go into the implementation with a low scale financing, probably around 1 to 2 million euros, and the testing period of 3 to 4 years, so that we see how that works in practice. The second example that I want to talk about is about impactization of industries and the tourism. In this case, it's a tourism. It could be any other industry. You can tackle any industry and you try to make it better. There are different reasons why you do that, but obviously we are pretty much convinced that it's worth to do it, because at the end it also creates a more competitive position of the service provider or the product developer on the market. So it's not only about the empathy for the society challenges, but it's also about your position. And it's also applicable for other activities. Our methodologies, we test them. For example, at this point, we are working on the impactization of a public procurement. Public procurement is a very strong mechanism. A lot of money goes through that, but obviously it's also limitedly used. It could serve the public benefit interest better. It could be impactized. It could have more local impact on the social economy sector, on the target groups. And there are different ways to do that, but you need to educate the public sector, you need to develop things, you need to develop tools. So this is approach for the industries and different services and different ways. Why tourism? I won't go too much into the details of the story. We were involved in the tourism for several years, also developing different things. We developed different products in Slovenia, but we saw that the tourism, in a way, Slovenia, and I think also the Croatia, for example, are very much towards green, sustainable tourism, where there is I would say, a strong approach to minimize the harm of tourism industry. When we kind of did the research on that together with academics, we saw that not necessarily this is creating the best impact if you just minimize the harm of the industry. It might happen that you could maximize the impact of industry and you get the better results. So the what I would call the impact, the impact tourism is an upgrade of a sustainable tourism. Theo, I have a short movie here, but I won't show it at this point. Maybe if you have time later on at the end, so that we don't lose too much of the time. So I'll just go through the presentation. And in this sense, what is extremely important, what we found out in last years, that if we go through the impactization of the tourism products, and I'll show you how we do it, the result of that is not that only these products are more in public benefit, that they help these local smaller organizations and tourist providers, but they also result in innovative products which are more of interest for the tourists. And I think this is one of the key areas where we need to do steps ahead, especially after this post-COVID area, where a lot of, I would say, demand goes in the direction of having smaller, more unique, more personalized, more or less massive tourism. So this, I would say, a more boutique approaches and with the smaller players. And this is what the impact tourism is about. It's a way of production method where you create these very concrete products which are interesting for the tourist and enable him to actually link himself to the local society challenges. So not only treating him as a king and offering him some superior services, but also show him a bit of a real life in the local environment. So maximization of the tourist useful footprint is the core goal of tourism in this impactization process of this industry. How we do it? We have a set of indicators in different categories of this, and we do it at the level of the working on quality, social responsibility and sustainability of the products, local impact, linked to the societal challenges, on the unique experience of this product, on the role of the impact tourism, inclusion and accessibility criteria, on the view on the social and fair economy relating to the product as such, on the impact measurement and management, and on the different certificates verification. And what we call the 11th category beyond the horizon is any other innovative approach that result in a better impact and maximizing the impact of the individual product. We do it in a very detailed, I won't go through the methodology, I'll leave you that on the PowerPoint, and later on you'll have my contacts for all the details. But basically each category goes through the set of different questions, different views, and you check with your product where you stand, what could be improved, what could be done better, and where are the reserves that could actually increase the level of maximizing your impact and maybe add some innovative elements and so on and so forth. And you can do it with impactization of the existing programs or products or with the new ones. And you can do it from the very small ones For example, we tested a group of tourists in Slovenia. If they sit on the Bled Lake coast and they drink a coffee, they can just drink a coffee and they can, well, watch their Samsung mobile phone. But if you invite them and you give them incentives and you say, we give you a 30% discount if you drink this coffee, and you help us to save or to give us your view on how to solve the problem of the swans on the lake or any other problem. It doesn't really matter. And what they do is, it's extremely interesting. You really get active participation. People get involved. They have empathy. It's a unique experience for them. Every day they drink 3 times coffee, but this is different. They connect to the local environment. They suggest. They even want to stay there. They want to come back. They want to donate. They want to do different things. They want to be active. And there is clear benefit for the local community, but there is also a unique experience for the tourists. And we have a very good responses. And this combination of these obviously needs to be done carefully. It's not only a social experiment in that sense. It needs to have all these, I would say, attributes of the quality product and so on and so forth. But it is different. And you can involve them in a very different ways. And I'll show you, for example, one case that we did. This is impactization of the existing product. So what you do is you diagnose the local problem. In Bohinj, I don't know whether you were in Slovenia, we have this beautiful lake in Bohinj. We have a nice environment. What we have a problem of local community, we have a lack of adequate quality free time activities for local young people. We have always a problem of financing local associations. And you know, Slovenians, we love ski jumping. So we have a very strong ski jumping association in Slovenia. And in Bohinj, what we have is the second oldest ski jump facility in Europe, which is called Hansnova Skakalnica. So we have young people, we have association, we have facility, and we don't have the money. If we invest into the product, so what we do, we invested 15,000 euros of a hybrid loan, no guarantee needed, and we built, well, it's not necessarily the most innovative thing, we built the Sky Flyer, the zip line, where you actually jump as a tourist and you reach on a zip line, you reach 250 meters, so you set up a world record. So you feel how it is to jump for 10, 15 seconds. Obviously, people are scared, so they get their mentor. Young people help them to get over that scare and so on and so forth. The income goes to the local community and to the ski association and so on and so forth. So the whole package is based on the diagnostics, using some of the tools, and it ends with a sustainable activity that brings both the impact and both the new financial sources to this, I would say, impact tourism provider. And you can do it in many, many different ways, in many, many different industries. But what brings this is a better impact in the local community. You can be very innovative. We have different products. I won't go into details. But you obviously link the product with the society challenges. If that is a preservation of clean water, then you do something together with the local provider. If that is a lack of empathy for the migrants, you can do more, I would say, social experiment. In last year, we tested people, foreign tourists before COVID came to Slovenia. They left the mobile and documents and clothes and everything with us, and they spent 24 hours in Slovenia as a migrant, not knowing the language, not having the mobile phone, not having anything. What they paid for that tourist product is what they would averagely spend on a day in Slovenia. After 12 or 24 hours, they get a very nice impression how Slovenia really looks if you don't have anything, and if you're a tourist without everything, or if you would be a migrant. So it's an experiment, obviously, but it's a product that you can sell to the tourists, and they would be interested in that. They get a mentor, which is one of the guys from the vulnerable groups who actually knows how to survive with €1 a day. So obviously this is a win-win situation for everybody, because he gets paid obviously for that. And so you can combine in many different ways. What I'm saying here is innovation goes hand in hand here with impactization. You sell that then later on as a product on the platform and so on and so forth. So it's also a product sustainable on the market available. You build on a network of players and so on. And the third one, I'm trying to be as fast as possible there. I don't know whether I'm managing that.
Just have like 5-6 minutes more. I think it's
okay. I just mentioned the third one, and this one is maybe even more understandable. We can do the impact modeling also at the product level. So we can take in our hand any product or anything that is there existing, and we try to make it better, to try to make it, to try to maximize its impact. Let's try what we did at the beginning to prove the concept that we work on. Is we took a belt, ordinary belt. You have millions of belts. You have belt industry in the world, which is, I don't know, 50 billion euros worth industry. And what we did is we have no knowledge on the fashion, belts, accessories, wood, leather, whatever, no knowledge whatsoever, but we wanted to try the methodology of impactization on the product. In the phase one, you do the impact diagnostics. What you do is you see what are the challenges what a belt brings. So on the belt production level, if you do the diagnostic, you see that use of materials can be problematic. Use of chrome, metals, animal use for raw skin. A global fashion industry concept is not the nicest one. So it's no local production, no local materials, low impact employment, price dumping, and so on and so forth. And you go through all these challenge areas. On the set of use of belts, there is limited use for target groups because obviously they have health issues, allergies to metal. Limited functional use at the airports, you have to take that off and so on. Durability things, unwanted use of belts, people use it to create violence and so on. Reuse phase, not in details. There is no circular economy on that and so on and so forth. Product diversification. So what you do is you diagnose the product and you list the challenges. In the second phase, you do what we call impactization map. So you map where the impact could be related to the challenge. If you have a challenge of use of chrome and metals, obviously, you could try to do it without the chrome and without metal tanning, whether that's with a natural tanning. If you have, I don't know, global fashion model, maybe the local production, local materials, impact employment, inclusion, vulnerable groups, and so on. These are all the, I would say, the possibilities that you can use. There are 15 listed here. It could be even more or different ones. It depends really how deep you go with this impactization mapping. But basically saying these are the things that could improve the things. What you do in the next step is you choose, if you want to do that, obviously, because whether you're a company or a social enterprise or organization, you choose which business model will you actually use. So whether you will tackle one of these challenges or not. And for example, here, when we did the testing, we said, I don't know, durability, which is here in orange on the 12. We saw that on the Kickstarter, somebody is producing extremely durable belt. So we said, well, this is already solved. It doesn't influence the society so much, already solved, we won't deal with that. And the white ones, we said, okay, we'll deal. And the yellow ones, we said, okay, we will deal with that and try to make things better, but they demanded also innovation. So obviously it wasn't simple to replace the metal of the buckle and the torn with some other materials. You could use Kevlar, plastic or whatever, but that not necessarily gives the best impact. So we decided to use wood, which is a local material. Slovenia is a wooden country and so on and so forth. So in that sense, every challenge is tackled with the individual impact. Some of them are easier to make, some of them are harder to make. For example, we used the whole brand to campaign that the belts are not used for the violence. We link to the associations working on that. We link to the craftsmanship and artisans and so on. So trying to maximize these results of this product. And on the level of the innovation, we try to innovate, technologically seen. We try to innovate. So replacing the wooden buckle needed a patent. We did the wooden buckle instead of the metal one. So it's industry language and real patent on that. We tried to enable the consumer to build their own belt, and so on and so forth. So trying to answer to all of the challenges. Obviously, this is a demanding process to do, technically seen, but it results in a new and more competitive product. At the upper side, you will see this wooden buckle. What happened to us is, because it's very nicely sewed, but if you include the vulnerable groups, obviously we had contact with the Italian leather factories, and they have 10 or 20 years of experience in making such products. If you involve a victim of violence, you can't teach her in 3 months to do such quality product. So you need to tackle the limited capacity of vulnerable groups. We innovated for next, 6 months, and we change the system of sewing with what we call now nut system. So you can modify the belt and fix the belt with the wooden part, and every disabled person can do that. And not necessarily that everybody can participate in the process. You also have innovative new product, which looks nice and so on. Well, we can talk about look, but by the end of the day, you have this different approach. Basically, we're coming to the totally another product on the market. Well, this is a picture of that. And then you also manage that impact model. So you go through all these criteria of this product, and by the end of the day, you get some kind of a fashion index. For example, our product has 8.5 out of 11, saying we are somewhere on the good way to maximize the impact of this product. Phil, can I show the movie? It's 2 minutes long.
If it will work, yeah, you can do that, and after that we will follow with the discussion. Yeah.
I'll just have.
Try.
I don't know if it's gonna work. Does it work?
Wood. It is all around us, every day. Humans are connected with it since, well, forever. It is strong, soft, and full of life, just like us. It is the best material to build with for the environment. It is infinitely renewable. If wood didn't exist, people would have invented it. Luckily, we don't have to, but we can invent something out of it. So, at Woodbelt, we did. We combined it with luxury aesthetics, environmental consciousness, and social impact. By saving from being burned smaller pieces of the highest quality trunks of maple, walnut, and beech, we created something unique. With our vision using impact process principles as the foundation of the brand to leave a positive footprint behind, we handed them over to artisans who've been working with wood all their lives. After many months of testing, discovering, and realizing the power of wood in the smallest essence of its existence, we designed Woodbelt. A belt with a statement. I care about the environment, and I do it with style. They are made with extreme precision and a lot of passion. Every detail has its own story behind it. With the Nut series, our artisans have developed a special wooden screwing system so that we can achieve this sophisticated high-fashion design. With wedge models, you'll probably take a double look at how it's possible that the entire clasp is made of wood, but it is, and it's very solid. All other materials, cork, hemp, cotton, and circular leather, are carefully selected in order not to harm nature. We are a brand with a non-profit mentality. We value social and environmental objectives. So, choose your impact. Woodbelt.
So this was just a short example of what can be done to the impactization. Whether this belt is good or not, it's not so important. What I'm saying here is, when you step into the impactization process, what happened is that at the end, we got a very competitive product on the market because we were touched by the amazing Amazon Launchpad, for example, for innovation products. They invited this product into that. Now it's in the competition for the Red Dot Award and so on and so forth. So it's not only about the empathy for the societal challenges, it is a concrete link between impactization and between innovation and competitiveness on the market. And I'm pretty sure about that. And that can be done if you do it systematically on a very different level, whether these are policies, industries, activities, products, or services. And let me end at this point.
Great, Primož. Thank you very much for your really interesting presentation and the lecture. And as Sandra said in the chat, I also admire your energy when you are talking about your projects and basically everything what you are doing in your life. So thank you again for this. We had one question from Tamara from Smart. I will just somehow try to wrap up the presentation, the lecture, and then I will follow with a question and with the questions. So it was really funny for me to hear once again new terms that you used, like impact molecule, impact employment. So maybe it seems that we are on the right track to produce also some kind of impact dictionary, because a lot of terms are getting to be used more and more in the public discourse. So something that was really interesting to me, and I think this is also the framework of the Tamara question, is I mean, you basically started with a pay by success model introduction. So you talked about the social outcomes contracting and social impact bonds, which are also introduced by, as previously mentioned, Royal Cohen as one of the impactization investment models that are still in the piloting phase, but somehow they get validated in different countries around the world. And I think that talking about finding the solutions and using the different new innovative methodologies in the development of the entire sectors of the development and innovation in the products, it always somehow ends that collaboration is one of the most important prerequisites to start this kind of the processes. And you also mentioned that all that impact modeling, impactization processes are really complex processes. So I'm really keen, as well as Tamara, to find out, can you just answer, do you have a feeling, or do you know what is going on outside of your ecosystem? Do you know any of the good examples, practices, initiatives on the European or global level that are taking place, or that basically validated already their impact business model? And can you connect these practices, or maybe your experience with the importance of the collaboration? Maybe you can also say from your experience what are the pros and cons of the collaboration when we are talking about the impactization processes. And something that I'm also interested in is how you and other stakeholders that are promoting impactization as a process are somehow fostering usage, implementation of these methodologies and tools you developed. So are you doing some educational programs? Are you doing mentoring schemes with different stakeholders, et cetera, et cetera? So to wrap up, please explain if you have some more practices, examples, initiatives. Try to answer us, or somehow bring closer to us how importance of the collaboration and pros and cons, and tell us what are the next steps, what are you doing in terms of promotion, education, and what you will do in the future.
Thanks, Theo, for this. I'll try to be brief on this one. Yeah, I think the collaboration is absolutely the word, which is probably the magic key to solve many of the problems, but obviously it's not an easy task to do it. Even at the level of the normal project implementation, or normal business, it's not easy to collaborate. Neither is on the complex systems. I think there are several good, well, if we relate to the social outcome schemes and these new approaches for the complex society challenges, there are many new examples, and I'll equip you with that. Starting from the UK and later on Scandinavia, I think we are now already have, I would say, 30 to 50 different SOC models, also in the Central Europe, in Germany, in other countries, with a very promising, I would say, results. So it's an instrument which is not correlated only to this UK system, but it's now transferred with a big help of the already mentioned Citra and other players also to our environment. But obviously needs to be carefully adapted. I think one of the, I would say, major problems here is that we are at the different levels, obviously, of the development. Those of us who develop things and we do it as a core business, we obviously see the advantages. But if you see, for example, I don't know, the small local community that tackles huge challenges in the local community and is understaffed, has no knowledge and so on, this is going to be a process. You can't convince them to do something in 2 months, obviously, right? The same goes for the governments and so on. So tackling these, I would say, complex partnerships, there are at least 2 approaches. One is absolutely what you said, to raise the knowledge, to talk about that, to show good practices, and even to enable these main stakeholders to see it from their perspective. So the public authorities talk with the public authorities in Germany, in Finland, to visit. Today, I think he's online. He sent the Slovenian officials to Finland. We spoke with our guys and they went to Germany, and so on and so forth. So this exchange and building of trust is extremely important. This is one way to do it. And the second, which I think would demand a bit of innovation, I would say, what we need is what I call public entrepreneur profile. So we need a profile of people who are actually employed in the local communities, in the public sector, but think more in entrepreneurial way or the impact way. Not necessarily about the money as entrepreneur, but in an impact way. So some kind of a impact entrepreneur also in other fields would help, because these people would then be our ambassadors and would change things, because obviously there is always a reluctance towards the changes, innovation, and so on and so forth. Honestly, I thought 5 or 10 years ago when we introduced these models, I thought everybody's going to be happy because we are solving societal challenges. Well, not really, obviously, but every societal challenge, I didn't speak about that today, has these different perspectives and these different views from different standpoints. If we talk about a product or industry or whatever, and we think, how is that seen from this public authority or from the investor side or from the target group, and we deal with these aspects and we bring them on the table, then everybody is more interested and motivated to deal with that. But obviously, that doesn't happen just by itself. It's a moderated process where you need to be very careful. I was lucky. I was for 10 years a president of the Slovenian Association of Mediator Organizations. So mediating between different organizations and people. So I know how tricky this can be, and you have to do it step by step and with the pace that the less equipped stakeholder can do it. And obviously that kills our entrepreneurship mood. We would like to do it immediately, and that can't be actually done. But there are good examples, and I'll share them with you because I think that these models are coming in. And when you say on the technology, let me go back. We use different words also to provoke. You know, for example, I did a research last week. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't use some of the words that are in the industries. For example, societal patent. Why don't we patent some of the solutions that actually work? Why am I called for the patent on the wooden buckle and not for a brilliant solution to the societal challenge? Because nobody doesn't understand that language. So we need to speak about that, and maybe also transfer it to the more convenient language and more understandable language that other people speak about. And I provoke all the time, but there were many terms and terminology that I used in the last 20 years and actually is in use now, even if the words are a bit weird at the beginning.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Primož. But I just have one following question, and then I will give the floor to my colleague Igor from Smart Organization. Do you think that, okay, we understand this is the complex, as you said, slow, moderated process, and basically all stakeholders are still on the, I will say, early stage of the development of their capacities to deal with this kind of complex processes. But do you have the feeling, or do you maybe have the knowledge about the validated impactization models? Is this the win-win-win situation for all three stakeholders groups? Do they all benefit? I mean, in your presentation, you mentioned that we are not talking only about the social impact, we are also talking about the financial returns. So basically, we are talking about the impact investment models here. So what do you think? Is this the solution that basically will all benefit? Or do you think it is too complex to be implemented in different sectors, in different situations, in different projects in order to produce financial returns as well as societal impact?
Well, in my opinion, absolutely has to be done on a very thorough impact modeling process. You can't just say that any societal challenges can be solved with a SOC, for example, as such. Some of them might have limited solutions for the target groups. Some of them might not bring adequate, or we don't have adequate service providers or innovative services for that. We need to develop that. In some, we would hardly find any financial savings for the investor or even for the public authority as the beneficial of that. So obviously it needs to be taken care of. But on the same side, well, this could be a black scenario in that sense. But on the other side, I show you on the graph, if you stay with the status quo situation, you still stay with a societal challenge, with a huge financial burden for the government, with probably some good ideas of the service providers that are not capable to do it, and with unaware investors that might do something. So if you moderate that carefully, the majority of the programs is successful also in the financial way. But what we need to say here is not necessarily in a positive revenue stream. It's not only about 5% income for the investor. If you reduce the costs for the public savings from 80 millions to 12 millions, that's still a huge success, right? You save 6 millions. You invested those 6, 4 into the, intervention logic and mechanism, but 2 stays still with the government. So it's still a win-win situation if you're doing a good job. And I think this is the crucial point. These schemes, as you said, payment by results, they should bring results. And I wouldn't like to banalize the target groups, because, for example, in Finland, what you do is you buy outcome, you buy a net. So a young person enters with the age of 6 into the program, and it ends at 18. If at 18 he's not a net, the investor gets the money. So it's buying outcome. But this is communicated to this young guy. The government saves everybody, but it's a product-based scheme by the end of the day. If you deliver, it works. But you also have schemes where this financial thing is not so important. So by the end of the day, you have countries and investors saying, well, George Soros financed me at the beginning 20 years ago. And he said, well, you can spend this money, just do something good. Whatever you do, you don't measure, you don't report, you don't do anything. Just do something. Yeah. And I hope you'll do something good, right? This was nice finance.
Yeah.
Basically, this is the impact that you create, even if there is no financial return. This is still impactization process.
Yeah, this is something that I wanted to add, and thank you for that last sentence. I think it's really important when we are talking about the impactization and we are talking impact investment. The financial return also can be like zero, but then we are talking about the increasiness of the quality and effectiveness of the services and value provided to the final beneficiaries. Thank you, Primož. Igor, you had the question.
One comment and one question or question or two. First, every time I participate in events like this one we had today, talking about social economy, innovation, social impact, etc., I got butterflies in my belly for both two sides. One, because of the inspiration I get from the presentations and discussions. But the other one is that quite often after the presentation, you don't follow up. You don't go into new approaches, new methodologies, into innovation, etc. on different levels, all levels basically. The idea of this project, New Rules of the Game, was actually to consider the issue of old, current, and new complex societal problems that are getting even more complex, that we cannot solve them with known unsuccessful methodologies. So we have to make an effort to go forward, to innovate, to try new things, to experiment, to pilot, to be ready to make a mistake and learn from it, to reshape our concepts, approaches, and intervention logics. And I hope we did a small step forward in that direction, not on the scale that Primož was talking about in his really inspirational presentation that was clear, concise, precise. So everybody who wanted to understand what impactization is, I think now has a quite clear idea of it, at least how Primož understands it and what he does. The examples were absolutely great on different levels. The first one about the NEET population, so young unemployed youngsters out of the education, is very relevant currently in Croatia, because literally tens of even hundreds of millions of kunas and euros are going to be poured into trying to solve the problem of NEET population in Croatia through integrated territorial investment mechanism, ITU. I suppose, Primož, that you're aware of that grand scheme, let's call it that way, through urban agglomerations. And I think it would be great if the projects that are going to be held take a look at the impactization model and try to think through which approaches should be taken into solving the quite abnormally huge and complex problem of NEET population. And I'm a bit afraid that it's not going to happen, but that probably most of people who will try to tackle the problem will do it in the old-fashioned way. That's the first thing. The second thing is, that's my comment. Now two questions. You were talking about, and Theo followed up with a question about the partnership with different stakeholders on different levels. The steps that we should take that should be slower, etc., etc. But on one of the first slides, you mentioned and highlighted in yellow, I think, the one of the components, and that is trust. So can you follow up a little bit about the importance of trust? Because I think, and we talk quite a lot in Smart and in different occasions, the problem of lack of trust on all different levels that is even lower nowadays maybe than it ever was, and I think it's going to be even bigger problem in the future. So the trust issue and the reception of impact modeling in Slovenia, even though you have said a few words about that, at least as I understood it. And one practical question, when you compare impact modeling approach, how much more effort is to prepare an intervention, a project, comparing with what we, at least in non-profit sector and non-profit organizations, are more familiar with, the logical framework approach or result framework approach, which also has the concept of impact as the ultimate long-term goal. So I hope that my last question is clear enough for you to maybe share your experience in, because I suspect that you are aware of all of these concepts. So how much more time, energy, and effort and knowledge has to be put into preparing an impact modeling intervention? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Igor, for the question. Primož, if you can stay within the 4 to 5 minutes time frame, it would be great. Thank you.
Let me start with the last one. I think it shouldn't be such an upgrade to what you do. Actually, everybody does a lot of these common things and going on, project planning and so on and so forth. We were kind of measuring things, how people understood our approaches. And if it's an 8 to 12 hours long training program, they understand what we're talking about in the details. After that, what you need to do is you obviously need a multifunctional team. You also need economists, other knowledges, and who are actually equipped with that. So it's not only a project logic, you need a bit more widened team. But that can be done practically at every level, because I'm pretty sure any organization has good contacts with academic research and so on and so forth. So it is a bit of additional work, but at the end of the day, it's I think a very good process, which by the end of the day, nobody can tell you that you didn't do it thoroughly. And I think this is the main reason also where you can then come on and build on the trust. Because going back to the trust that you ask, for me, 3 things work. I'll be very concrete. A long track record of my personal attitude towards everybody. So this is very personal. Wherever I come, I have a good record and explaining things. Well, not necessarily that people take me seriously, but they would trust me in a way. They wouldn't do it. They would, whatever they would do. But basically, personal attitude is one of the things. The second one is, I don't know how it works in Croatia, but in the environment where I am, this EU approach opens some of the doors. If the EU is doing that, if the EU is financing that, and so on and so forth, it opens some of the doors. That's why we strongly do, and this is the answer to the previous question of the tail. For example, with the impact tourism and with other methodologies, we're trying to build them into the EU policy documents. In 2019, for example, the Commission and the committee first time adopted the opinion on the importance of the impact tourism concept as an upgrade of the sustainable concept. In following years, financial perspective, we understand there will be new resources for that, financing lines and so on and so forth. So creating an environment for this new concept is an important thing. The second, beside personal and new level, is showing good examples. Showing good examples always help. And I think if people see the advantage, as I was talking before, from their perspective of the challenge, I think they would step into that if that doesn't burden them too much or if they don't risk too much. So risk minimizing measures for the stakeholders needs to be a part of the plan. How to make their life easier, how to solve their problem. It's ridiculous by the end of the day. They should be interested to do it, but they will never do it if you don't help them and solve their problems. So this is a process. Going back to the nets, Igor, that you talked about, you need to communicate very clearly. When we debated about the impact and the SOC schemes, nobody understood that. But if we say in a clear language, 100 nets cost, according to all the calculation, 10 million euros in next 6 years. This is the language they understand. They get more motivated. But you need to be equipped. You need to be sure. You need to do the thorough research, analysis, and everything. And without that, it doesn't work. And what I wanted to say, just the last one, I would like to avoid, in a way, to link the social innovation, impactization, all these societal challenges and so on, wouldn't like to link it only to the social economy sector and to the UDUGE, to the social entrepreneurs and so on and so forth. This is a serious business also for the conventional business and industry. This is a huge opportunity, especially because, as said, complex challenges are coming in and everybody has to be prepared for this multi-level problems level in a way. And we can, I think, help them. And this is where I think also the social economy sector could benefit, because they know what they talk about when they talk about the impact. So it could be a win-win situation for both sectors.
Great, Primož. I hope, Igor, you got the answers. We have 5 minutes left, so Jelena Jurkin-Badurina also has the question. Jelena, jump in.
Thank you very much, Theo. I hope you hear me. Thank you, Primož, for this excellent presentation. I am really inspired. And as a researcher in the field of tourism, this is a very interesting topic for me. And I would like to ask you, what do you think? Is there some kind of actually challenge or more like a limitation in existing scheme of EU funding projects or national funding for this type of green and sustainable initiatives, in terms that most of this impact that you talk about, we usually put in this field. We hope we are going to do it in the future. So we don't usually put them in our projects. So we are actually mostly concerned with bringing out the platform for this future positive change to happen. Do you think that in the following period of EU funding, this will become a requirement to actually produce something tangible, some tangible change, some tangible impact in our projects, not just to work on it, to educate people, to make them more aware? So should we move from this soft impacts that we are now doing in our EU projects and national funding projects to this more hard and very tangible impacts? Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. You can continue, Primož.
Okay. Thanks, Jelena, for the question. I think it's a brilliant one, actually. Well, when you say this, the word hard or more tangible, sometimes it sounds like in a bit with a negative sound in a way. But this is obviously the reason, the direction that we need to go, actually, because everything by the end of the day is tangible. We invest the EU money, we invest the public money, we invest the private money. Any money anywhere invested should be spent properly, especially because there is a huge need to do it properly and to do it rationally and to do it efficiently. So what I'm saying is, yes, we wouldn't like to burden people with a red tape and report them on a small cost of 2.50 euros, but we need to shape the models in a way that they are tangible, that they are measurable, that they can actually convince us with their impact. And I think that is very important. And there is no limitation within the EU, the EU funds at this point, with a little bit of innovative approach that you put these models into that. But going back to my main idea, EU budget lines are actually enabling that. But if we want to maximize this process of financing, we should stress the importance of these new approaches. We should give additional incentives. We should give additional impact to these things. So we should be more in favor of these new approaches, and this what creates the impact. So it's not only about enabling it and letting in by the slide door, but actually promoting and have a special resources for that. This is maximizing the EU budget lines. And again, you can maximize whatever you want. You just have to do it in the right direction. So not to do it in a private pocket or to the corruption or wherever, but to do it in public benefit. Who decides what is a public benefit? Obviously, the stakeholders, the decision makers, obviously, but they are responsible and accountable for that.
Yeah, thank you, Primož. I think that was the basically also the great closing opinion or message you wanted to send, and I wanted to send it at the end. I think it's really important to remember ourselves when we are designing the projects, when we are designing the new products or services, that basically we are here to maximize the impact of philanthropists, donors, and investors, whoever they are. So according to this, we have a comment from Deborah. There are no soft skills, in my opinion. Without soft skills, people tend to create short-living products. So soft gives an important layer to creating meaningful products. Do you have any comment on this, Primož, before the closing?
I would agree with this. I think it's important, yes. And it's a very complex thing. I think we should stay clear in our head. There are different approaches. We should just look around and be careful and thorough when we do. And I think we have, especially in the social economy sector at this point, we have quite a huge responsibility to do things properly. Because this is one of the, I would say, huge challenges, but also opportunities. So let's try to do our best and let's try to maximize our personal impact on the things that we do.
Great. I mean, you talked about different projects that you're already implementing and some of the projects that could basically give a higher benefit to all stakeholders involved, like impactization of public procurement in our countries. And yeah, it's 11 o'clock. I would like to close with maybe your message to the participants and to ourselves. I mean, as I see from the participants list, we are all like leading civil society organizations in different fields. What do you think, Primož? Do you have any closing message for us? What should be the next step now? What is the follow-up now when we understand basically how impactization as a process is really important in today's times, and how basically collaboration and creating the trust, as Igor said, also, and some others, is really important. So what, in one sentence, what is the next step for you, and what do you think, what is your recommendation, what is the next step for us?
Well, in one sentence, I'm bad at one sentences, but basically, as in personal life, you need to take care of your health, for example, and you need to invest into your health, right? The same goes with the impact, whether it's personal or your business attitude. You need to take care of the impact. It's extremely important and gives, I think, in a long term, it creates a better society. And if we are honest in a way, and thorough and knowledgeable and innovators, as we say we are, we can't avoid that. We need to do the homework, and we need to involve that in many different ways, not necessarily in this way that I do it. There are many different ways, but we just need to take this special effort and do things the right way. Not only in our interest, but in the interest of, I would say, global society and all these terms that we use.
Yeah. So this is also something important for me to underline for myself, especially because I'm also with my organization. We are going through one another transition process. It is really important to remember that we should really stick to produce and to deliver the highest value we can do to all the stakeholders involved. And that, basically, that is the impactization of all resources that are involved in some of the project in order to create long-lasting financial as well as societal impact on all stakeholders involved. We need to finish now. I'm sorry for this. If we had like half an hour, I think it would be really interesting to open some other questions, but unfortunately we need to follow in half an hour with another panel with today's Slapnik. We will discuss circular economy and blockchain technology in the same track to produce the long-lasting impact. So Primož, thank you very much once again for your energy and the projects you are creating and implementing and the impact you are producing on different levels. I will give you the closing word now, and I don't know if Igor has anything to add. Thanks everybody for the participation and the energy and the participation in the discussion. Primož?
Just a final sentence. I would really like to thank you for the invitation. And if I didn't stress it enough, if you think this is useful, please contact me if we can be in any way useful for whatever exchange of information, creating impact, cross-border cooperation, whatever. And we're not on a pay list. Obviously, we're not doing it for money. So we would be extremely interested to build synergies. That's for sure. And I think you have many, many good examples, and we can build on that. And we should work like that. So thank you for today and for well, nice invitation, and for a lot of participants. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So collaboration started. Great. Thank you very much to everybody. Igor.
Just to say one extreme thank you to Primož, to you, Theo, as well, and to all the participants. Unfortunately, we have to move on basically to the next presentation, but I really hope that we will have the opportunity to continue this talk and maybe even follow up with some concrete work as well that will follow up all the great information and examples that Primož shared with us. Primož, thank you very much. Theo, very much. Thank you very much. And to all the participants, thank you again. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.